He's coming home, and it is not the man we want home.
And Prince William has made it 100% clear he doesn't want to have Harry around.
Yeah.
That Harry is a big problem.
I wouldn't believe Harry if he told me the sky was blue. He's doing this out of desperation. Desperation because nothing has worked in Hollywood. He's got no work. Literally no work. No work in America at all. It all flopped.
Why does he pander to the anger of the people? Does he not care to be the last king of England? Does he think that the people are stupid?
Harry plans UK return, but William shuts every door except one. He is coming home, but the red carpet has been completely rolled up, locked away, and the locks have been changed. Prince Harry is officially planning his grand return to the United Kingdom, but if he thinks he is walking back into the royal fold with open arms and fanfare, he is in for the ultimate reality check. The Duke of Sussex is making moves to establish a permanent foothold back on British soil, setting up a routine that would see him crossing the Atlantic every few months. But behind the iron gates of palace walls, the reaction is far from welcoming. Prince William has reportedly made his stance 100% clear: Harry is persona non grata, and as far as the future king is concerned, those gates are slammed shut forever. So why is Harry suddenly so desperate to stage a British comeback? Is it a genuine desire to reconnect with his roots, or is it a calculated PR maneuver born out of pure desperation after his Hollywood dreams completely imploded? With no work left in America, failed multi-million-dollar deals, and plummeting popularity scores that rival the most disgraced figures in modern history, Harry is running out of options. But as William systematically closes every single door in his face, one solitary entrance remains unlocked, leaving the entire monarchy teetering on the edge of an unprecedented showdown. The mechanics of this proposed return are as calculated as they are transparent, revealing a strategy that relies entirely on a slow, deliberate drip of public appearances designed to normalize what was once explicitly forbidden. When Prince Harry announced through carefully selected media channels that he intends to visit the United Kingdom every 8 to 12 weeks, it was framed as a noble effort to support his remaining British patronages and spend quality time with his family. But if you look beneath the surface of this carefully packaged narrative, the reality is far more cynical. This is not a man who has suddenly experienced an epiphany about the value of service or family unity. This is a man whose entire post-royal enterprise in California has suffered a catastrophic collapse, leaving him with no choice but to attempt a stealth re-entry into the very institution he spent years trying to dismantle. The blueprint is surprisingly simple: show up for a high-profile charity event, secure a few localized headlines, take photos with vulnerable citizens, and then quietly retreat back across the Atlantic before anyone can question the broader implications of what is actually happening. It is a slow-motion campaign to reverse the historic agreements reached at Sandringham, where the late Queen Elizabeth made it undeniably clear that a half-in, half-out royal status was completely unacceptable. Yet, here we are, watching a systematic attempt to execute that exact same strategy in piecemeal fashion. By turning up every few months for Wellchild, the Halo Trust, or the upcoming Invictus Games in Birmingham, Harry is attempting to create a parallel royal schedule, operating as a pseudo-working royal without any of the constitutional oversight, official accountability, or tedious diplomatic duties that actual working royals perform every single day. The sheer audacity of this plan is matched only by the silence surrounding his commercial ventures back in the United States, which have noticeably absent from his recent press briefings. Notice how the multi-million-dollar streaming contracts, the ill-fated podcasting deals, and the newly launched lifestyle brands are never mentioned when his team leaks details about his travel schedule. The silence is deafening because those ventures have turned into massive, humiliating failures that have drained his credibility in Hollywood. The elite power brokers who once lined up to sign exclusive content deals with the exiled prince have realized that once you strip away the royal drama and the sensationalized attacks on his own family, there is very little substance left to monetize. When the public appetite for endless grievance faded, the lucrative offers evaporated, leaving Harry with a barren commercial landscape in America. That is why the narrative has suddenly shifted back to London, to the charities he abandoned, and to the country he spent years claiming was too dangerous for his family to visit. But the strategic nature of these trips goes far beyond simple career rehabilitation. It is an aggressive attempt to force the royal institution into a corner. By publicizing his arrival months in advance through national newspapers, Harry effectively weaponizes the media to put pressure on his relatives. If the King or Prince William refuses to see him during a pre-announced visit, they risk looking heartless in the eyes of the public, which is precisely the reaction Harry's communications team hopes to provoke. It is a classic move straight from the Sussex playbook: create a public expectation, force the palace into a defensive posture, and then paint Harry as the eager peacemaker who is repeatedly snubbed by a cold and unforgiving family. But this strategy relies on the assumption that the public has a short memory and cannot see through the obvious contradictions embedded in these leaks. You cannot spend half a decade broadcasting private family arguments, writing tell-all memoirs detailing physical altercations in palace kitchens, and giving bombshell broadcast interviews accusing senior royals of subconscious bias, and then expect to stroll back into the country as if nothing happened. The sheer hypocrisy of claiming a deep desire to reconnect with his family while simultaneously funding endless legal battles and media briefings against them is astounding. Every move appears to be calculated for maximum visual impact, ensuring that his visits generate just enough royal-adjacent content to keep his global brand relevant, even as the substance of that brand continues to erode. The calculation is undeniable: if he can establish a consistent presence on British soil, he can maintain the illusion of being an active, important player on the world stage, effectively leeching off the prestige of the monarchy while offering nothing of value in return. The dynamic between the brothers has evolved from a bitter personal feud into a complete, irreversible breakdown of diplomatic relations, with Prince William establishing a line in the sand that cannot be crossed under any circumstances. For William, this is no longer about hurt feelings or personal betrayal, although those emotions certainly run deep after years of public attacks directed at him, his wife, and his children. For the heir to the throne, this is a matter of institutional survival and protecting the integrity of the future monarchy. Sources close to the Prince of Wales have made it abundantly clear that William views his brother as a permanent liability, a threat to the stability of the crown, and a person who simply cannot be trusted near any sensitive royal business. The phrase being used behind closed doors is persona non grata, a term traditionally reserved for foreign diplomats who have committed serious offenses and are no longer welcome within a host nation. Applied to a prince of the realm, it represents a catastrophic and final break in relations. William has watched as every private conversation, every confidential family gathering, and every subtle gesture of goodwill was systematically weaponized, leaked, or distorted for public consumption in books, documentaries, and foreign broadcast specials. The realization that nothing is sacred and no conversation is safe from being commercialized has driven William to make a firm, uncompromising decision: total non-engagement. There will be no secret meetings, no awkward photo opportunities, and no superficial reconciliation scenes staged for the benefit of camera crews or media sources. William's refusal to engage is not an emotional outburst that will cool over time, it is a cold, calculated strategy designed to insulate the royal family from further damage. He recognizes that any concession, no matter how small, will be taken as an invitation for Harry to further exploit his royal connections. If William allows his brother back into the fold even for a cup of tea, it will be spun into a major victory by Harry's PR team, used to legitimize his brand, and potentially transformed into material for his next commercial project. The Prince of Wales understands the long game, and as he prepares to eventually ascend the throne, he is determined to ensure that the monarchy is not undermined by internal sabotage masquerading as family drama. This unwavering stance has created an immense rift within the broader family structure, leaving other members walking a tightrope between personal sympathy and loyalty to the institution. But William's authority on this matter is absolute, and his position has effectively dictated the response of the entire senior royal network. When Harry arrives in London, the doors do not just close quietly, they are bolted shut with deliberate precision. The senior working royals, those who dedicate their lives to cutting ribbons, visiting community centers in the pouring rain, and representing the nation on official state business, have completely closed ranks. There are no available slots on their calendars, no invitations to private residences, and no willingness to act as intermediaries in a dispute that has gone far beyond ordinary sibling rivalry. The isolation is complete, serving as a stark reminder to Harry that actions have permanent consequences, and that you cannot attack the foundation of an institution while simultaneously expecting to enjoy its privileges and protection whenever it suits your personal itinerary. This relentless determination to maintain distance has exposed the underlying desperation driving Harry's recent moves, revealing a man who is increasingly out of options and running out of time to secure his position. As the doors continue to slam shut across London, the focus shifts entirely to the single remaining avenue of access, creating a deeply uncomfortable dynamic that threatens to disrupt the fragile stability of the remaining royal hierarchy. King Charles finds himself caught in an agonizing position, torn between his natural instincts as a father and his solemn duty as the reigning monarch. At 77 years old and facing significant health challenges that require careful management, the king is being subjected to an unprecedented level of emotional and political pressure. While Charles has always maintained a degree of warmth toward his youngest son, his willingness to keep a door slightly ajar is being tested to its absolute limit by the aggressive, public nature of Harry's maneuvering. The king's advisors are deeply alarmed by the potential for these brief, highly publicized reunions to be exploited, warning that every meeting risks being leaked to the press within hours of Harry's departure. The previous visit, which lasted a mere 45 minutes, was treated by Harry's team as a major diplomatic breakthrough, a narrative that was immediately pushed out to international media outlets to demonstrate his continued access to the center of power. But for the palace, that short meeting was a stark reminder of how easily a father's vulnerability can be turned into a media spectacle. The strategic brilliance, or pure ruthlessness, of Harry's plan lies in targeting the one person in the family who finds it hardest to say no. By focusing his efforts entirely on the king, Harry bypasses the fortress that William has built around the rest of the working royals, attempting to secure royal legitimacy directly from the source. However, this tactic has created immense tension behind palace walls, sparking friction between the king's office and the Prince of Wales's team, who view any softness toward Harry as a direct threat to the future of the monarchy. William's team is keenly aware that allowing Harry back into the king's orbit creates an ongoing security risk and a constant source of distraction from the core work of the crown. The timing of these proposed visits makes the dynamic even more precarious. Planning to drop in every few months, right when the king is trying to manage his official duties alongside his ongoing medical recovery, places an unfair burden on a monarch who should be focusing on his health and statecraft, not managing the public relations of his estranged son. Furthermore, the logistical nightmare of arranging these visits creates chaos for palace staff, who are forced to navigate the treacherous waters of security protocols, accommodation requests, and media management, all while knowing that a single misstep could result in a fresh wave of negative headlines. The pressure on Charles is immense, as he must balance his paternal desire to see his son with the harsh reality that Harry's presence in Britain invariably brings controversy, division, and institutional disruption. Every time a new leak hits the press detailing Harry's intention to visit, it puts the king in a corner, forcing the palace to issue vague, uncomfortable statements that satisfy no one and only prolong the cycle of speculation. It is a game of high-stakes emotional chess, where the king's affection is being used as the ultimate bargaining chip by a prince who has burned every other bridge in his homeland and has nowhere else left to turn. The mechanics of this strategic maneuver become even more glaringly obvious when you examine the surrounding circumstances, specifically the bizarre and deeply contradictory narrative being constructed around his security demands and personal housing arrangements. While Harry's team aggressively briefs the press about his deep desire for family reconciliation, another part of his legal operation is locked in a bitter, ongoing war with the British government over his security status. For years, the Duke of Sussex has maintained the public position that the United Kingdom is simply too dangerous for him and his family to set foot in without automatic, taxpayer-funded armed police protection. He has dragged the Home Office through expensive, highly publicized legal battles, claiming that his life and safety are placed in grave jeopardy the moment he arrives on British soil. Yet, in a staggering display of cognitive dissonance, the very same media briefings announcing his plan to return every 8 to 12 weeks quietly contained a line that utterly demolished his own legal argument. His own team proudly boasted to journalists that his recent week-long trip to the UK went off completely without a hitch, describing a smooth, seamless visit where he traveled around the country, attended public charity events, and met with various individuals without a single security incident or threat taking place. The immediate reaction from legal observers and media commentators was one of pure astonishment at the sheer recklessness of such a statement. You simply cannot spend years arguing in a high court that the threat level against you is so catastrophically high that you require full state security, and then turn around and volunteer to the press that you spent 7 days casually roaming around Britain with zero problems whatsoever. By eager to frame his visit as a triumphant, hassle-free success, his own PR machine handed the government lawyers the exact evidence they needed to prove that his security fears are wildly exaggerated, if not entirely manufactured for dramatic effect. It exposes the fundamental flaw in the Sussex strategy. They tried to run two completely opposing narratives at the exact same time. On one channel, Harry is the hunted, vulnerable exile who is forced to flee for his life because his homeland is too hostile to navigate safely. On the other channel, he is the triumphant, relaxed royal global ambassador who can drop into London whenever he pleases, do a few high-profile photo ops for his charities, and leave without any trouble at all. You cannot have it both ways. Either the danger is real, severe, and persistent, making these frequent trips reckless and irresponsible, or the danger was always being used as a bargaining chip, a legal tool to force the British state into giving him special privileges that non-working royals simply do not receive. This massive contradiction has not gone unnoticed by the public, who are increasingly seeing his security lawsuits not as a genuine defense against threat, but as another performative attempt to retain the official status, prestige, and high-level perks that came with his former life as a full-time working member of the royal family. As if the security contradictions were not enough to expose the artificial nature of this planned return, the ongoing saga surrounding where Prince Harry actually sleeps when he lands in London reads like a chaotic comedy of errors, further highlighting the absolute isolation he faces from the royal establishment. Following his eviction from Frogmore Cottage, the permanent home granted to him by the late Queen that he subsequently abandoned, Harry effectively became homeless in his own native country, at least in terms of official royal residences. During recent visits, the accommodation arrangements have degenerated into a public display of petty disputes, miscommunication, and blunt rejections from the palace administration. Reports emerged that during a previous trip, a room at Buckingham Palace was tentatively offered to him, only for his team to initially reject it or fail to respond before the strict palace deadline expired. When his side reportedly circled back hours later attempting to accept the offer, they were met with the icy response that the deadline had passed. The offer was officially off the table, and he would have to make his own private arrangements at a hotel. Imagine the sheer humiliation of a prince of the realm, the son of the reigning king, being forced to check into a commercial hotel in central London because the palace security and housing managers refused to leave a room key at the front desk for him. Yet, despite this public embarrassment, current briefings continue to dangle the vague carrot that Harry might be staying at Buckingham Palace during his upcoming September trip, creating a false impression of royal hospitality that palace insiders are exceptionally quick to downplay. The reality is that the royal estate is no longer an open hotel for him to drop his bags whenever it suits his itinerary. With King Charles spending significant time at Balmoral in Scotland or Sandringham, and with William controlling access to Windsor, Harry is left floating in a logistical limbo, treated not as a beloved family member coming home for a visit, but as an unpredictable security risk who must be carefully managed, kept at arm's length, and given no official platform that could undermine the daily work of the actual working monarchy. The glaring absence of Meghan Markle from this entire British return strategy is perhaps the most revealing element of all, casting a massive shadow over the narrative that this is a unified, long-term family plan. For 6 solid years, the public was sold the image of Harry and Meghan as an inseparable, joint power couple, a modern, dynamic duo that operated as a single brand unit, moving in absolute lockstep whether they were stepping back from royal duties, launching commercial projects in California, or giving high-stakes TV sit-downs. Yet, as Harry prepares to embark on this ambitious schedule of visiting the UK every few months, the Duchess of Sussex is nowhere to be seen. Official reports and sources close to the couple repeatedly emphasize that no decision has been made regarding whether Meghan or their 2 children, Archie and Lilibet, will ever join him on these frequent trips across the Atlantic. In the fast-paced world of celebrity PR and royal commentary, no decision is almost always a polite euphemism for a definitive no. Meghan Markle's popularity ratings in the United Kingdom have plummeted to catastrophic depths, routinely ranking alongside the most discredited figures in modern British history. She knows that stepping foot on British soil means facing a public atmosphere that is deeply hostile, an aggressive media presence, and the awkward reality of being completely ignored by every single member of her husband's family. So, the brand that was built on the foundation of two people against the world has suddenly split into two distinct operational tracks, Meghan staying behind in Montecito to focus on her commercial endeavors, lifestyle branding, and Hollywood ambitions, while Harry flies solo back to the country he once swore he was escaping. This stark separation has fueled intense speculation online, with many commentators questioning how a marriage built on mutual exile can sustain one partner constantly returning to the very environment they both spent years criticizing. Is this a strategic decision to protect what little remains of their individual public images, or is it a sign of a deeper, structural shift in their personal and professional dynamic? The sight of Prince Harry traveling alone, staying in hotels, and attending charity functions by himself in London while his wife remains thousands of miles away in California undermines the core story they told the world in their documentary series. It suggests that the grand California dream was not quite enough to sustain him, and that despite all the rhetoric about freedom and new beginnings, Harry is fundamentally anchored to the country, the culture, and the institutional identity he left behind, even if that identity is now giving him the coldest possible shoulder. This isolation is further compounded when you align the timing of Harry's sudden desire for a British comeback with the brutal, undeniable reality of his commercial trajectory in the United States, revealing a timeline that speaks volumes about his true motivations. When the Duke and Duchess of Sussex first arrived in America, they were treated like royalty in the entertainment capital of the world. Streaming giants threw hundreds of millions of dollars at them, high-profile podcast platforms handed them exclusive production deals, and top-tier talent agencies signed them with the expectation that they would generate massive, global hits. But fast forward to the present, and that initial Hollywood gold rush has turned into an absolute commercial wasteland. Their highly public contracts have either been abruptly cancelled, allowed to quietly expire, or criticized by industry executives who openly labeled them as lazy and lacking content. The public's appetite for their specific brand of royal drama has completely dried up, replaced by a profound fatigue over their endless grievances and self-referential projects. Recent commercial metrics paint a devastating picture of their post-royal ventures, media projects stalling, box office receipts for associated initiatives dropping into double-digit embarrassments, and new product lines failing to generate any meaningful market momentum or consumer interest. In the ruthless landscape of American entertainment, once you lose your ability to generate massive profits or captivate audiences, you are instantly discarded. The Hollywood elite who once eagerly attended their events have quietly distanced themselves, realizing that associating with the couple brings endless drama with very little commercial return. When you line up the calendar of their American business failures directly alongside the sudden emergence of this UK return plan, the correlation is impossible to ignore. The moment the commercial money in America starts drying up, the desire to reconnect with his British charities and royal roots suddenly skyrockets. The undeniable truth is that the only asset Harry possesses that consistently holds value, generates global headlines, and commands public attention is his direct connection to the British royal family. The jam, the podcasts, and the lifestyle content do not hold a candle to the raw, historic power of the word royal. But that word only retains its value if he is actively seen in proximity to the institution itself. Harry's plan to return every few months is not a sudden longing for home, it is a desperate life support mission for his failing global brand, an attempt to plug himself back into the royal power grid before his celebrity status completely fades into obscurity. Yet, this desperate attempt to plug back into the royal grid faces an immovable object in the form of a public that has largely moved on and a constitutional structure that remembers the lessons of history all too well. Every single detail of this proposed return is being picked apart by commentators and social media users who recognize the pattern from years past. When the story first hit the press, it was framed as a noble return to his roots, but within hours, the public saw right through the carefully crafted narrative. People are no longer just reading the headlines, they are looking at the timing, analyzing the source leaks, and asking the hard questions that Harry's PR team desperately wants to avoid. Why announce these trips months in advance through a national newspaper instead of just quietly booking a commercial flight? Why use the press to broadcast private family intentions if the ultimate goal is genuine, quiet reconciliation? The answer lies in the fundamental nature of the media campaign he is running. This is not family life, this is a public launch, a strategic pitch to the world to prove that he is still a major player on the international stage. But the British public, much like Prince William, has developed a deep immunity to this specific style of media manipulation. The polling numbers tell a story that no amount of positive PR can spin. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have seen their favorability ratings collapse to historic lows, sitting in the absolute cellar alongside figures who have been completely removed from public life. The British people do not see a returning hero coming back to serve his country. They see an estranged prince who trashed his family for profit, realized the grass was not greener on the other side, and is now trying to negotiate a way back in on his own terms. This deep-seated public cynicism creates an environment where every trip Harry makes to London becomes a media circus, generating intense debate, heavy criticism, and constant friction for the palace communications team. It forces the royal family into a perpetual state of high alert, having to constantly manage the fallout from his visits, verify or deny reported meetings, and ensure that his presence does not overshadow the actual, meaningful work being carried out by the monarch and his heir. The tension is palpable, and as September approaches, the pressure continues to build on every single person involved in this ongoing royal saga. The legal, financial, and institutional fallout of this reckless strategy is now threatening to trigger a complete systemic collapse for the Sussex operation, elevating this dispute from a mere family squabble into a full-blown constitutional crisis. As the public and the media dissect every single element of this proposed return, the legal ramifications of Harry's relentless warfare against the British government are reaching a critical boiling point. His prolonged, extraordinarily expensive court battles against the Home Office have not only drained vast sums of personal wealth, but they have also alienated the very civil servants, security chiefs, and government ministers whose cooperation he desperately needs to facilitate his visits. By publicly challenging the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, Harry effectively declared war on the administrative apparatus of the state itself. Senior legal analysts have pointed out that his constant appeals and public complaints have painted him into a tight corner, where every future trip to London will be subjected to intense judicial and bureaucratic scrutiny. If his safety is indeed as compromised as his legal team repeatedly asserts in sworn affidavits, then his unilateral decision to schedule frequent, public-facing charitable visits without official state coordination is legally indefensible. It exposes the Home Office to immense operational pressure, forcing police forces to spend limited public resources on managing secondary security risks generated entirely by a private citizen who voluntarily abandoned his official duties. This legal friction is rapidly escalating into a broader political headache for the government, with parliamentarians and public commentators openly questioning why a sovereign nation should continually adjust its security apparatus to accommodate the personal media schedule of an exiled prince. The backlash is no longer confined to tabloid headlines or online message boards. It is actively shaping parliamentary discussions around royal funding, security allocations, and the legal status of non-working royals. Members of Parliament are under growing pressure from tax-paying constituents who are outraged at the prospect of public funds being utilized, directly or indirectly, to provide security coverage, traffic management, or logistical support for trips that are fundamentally designed to boost a private brand. Should the government yield to his demands, it risks setting a dangerous legal precedent, effectively allowing high-profile individuals to demand state-funded security operations whenever they feel like dropping into the country. Conversely, if the government maintains its firm stance and continues to deny him automatic police protection, Harry is forced to rely on private security teams who lack statutory authority, armed carry permits, or direct access to high-level state intelligence in the UK. This creates a bizarre, chaotic security environment on the streets of London every time he arrives, turning routine charity drop-ins into high-friction operational nightmares that anger local authorities and deepen his reputation as an unpredictable disruption to public order. Simultaneously, the financial foundation supporting the Sussexes' lavish lifestyle in Montecito is showing unmistakable signs of structural failure, creating an inescapable sense of urgency behind this frantic push to secure a British foothold. Maintaining a multi-million-dollar estate, around-the-clock private security detail, a global public relations firm, and an extensive legal team requires an astronomical, continuous influx of capital. When the initial media deals were signed in the immediate aftermath of Megxit, that level of expenditure seemed sustainable based on projected entertainment revenues. However, as those commercial avenues rapidly dry up and new lucrative contracts fail to materialize, the math simply no longer adds up. The brutal financial reality is that living like global royalty without the backing of the sovereign grant or a dedicated royal duchy requires relentless commercial monetization, a feat that is proving virtually impossible in an industry that has grown weary of their narrative. This impending financial squeeze is widely viewed by industry insiders as the true engine driving Harry's sudden eagerness to re-engage with his British patronages. By anchoring himself back to historic, highly respected UK organizations like the Invictus Games or Well Child, he attempts to wrap himself in the solemn dignity of public service, hoping that some of that institutional respectability will rub off on his tarnished commercial brand and reopen doors in corporate boardrooms across America. Yet, this calculated attempt to harvest institutional prestige is running directly into a wall of ferocious public backlash that threatens to destroy whatever remaining goodwill he possesses in his homeland. The British public's attitude toward the Duke of Sussex has hardened significantly over the past few years, evolving from initial disappointment into deep-seated resentment and apathy. Public opinion polls consistently show that the majority of citizens view his planned visits not as genuine acts of service or family devotion, but as cynical, self-serving public relations maneuvers. When a public figure reaches a point where every move, statement, and charity appearance is viewed through a lens of profound suspicion, the effectiveness of any PR campaign completely evaporates. Instead of generating warm headlines about a prince returning to support sick children or honor wounded veterans, his appearances spark fierce debates about his hypocrisy, his past attacks on the monarchy, and his perceived disrespect toward his aging father and the late Queen. Every photo opportunity becomes a lightning rod for controversy, with protesters, critics, and media commentators drowning out the intended charitable message with demands for accountability and the total removal of his royal titles. This brings us to the ultimate, burning question that continues to dominate international headlines and online commentary. Will Prince Harry ever be allowed back into the royal fold, or has he permanently burned the very bridge that sustained his global identity? As the doors systematically slam shut across London and the royal establishment maintains its united, unyielding front, the window for any meaningful reconciliation is rapidly closing forever. Prince William's uncompromising stance as the future king sends an unmistakable message to the world that the monarchy will prioritize institutional integrity, stability, and dignity over individual family drama. The future of the British crown rests on continuity, public trust, and selfless service, values that are fundamentally incompatible with the chaotic, commercialized, and sensationalist operation Harry and Meghan have built in California. The king may leave a solitary side door cracked open out of paternal instinct, but that fragile connection hangs by a thread, contingent on Harry refraining from further media leaks, public attacks, or commercial exploitation of his royal status, a condition that history suggests he is entirely incapable of